Hi, it's your food seductress, Chef Ilona Daniel, and we are celebrating the bounty of the summer, late summer harvest tomatoes. When I thought about what I wanted to share, I thought of a story about when I was a kid and I learned how to grow tomatoes. And I was so amazed at these tiny little seeds that could grow these beautiful big plants. And I'm going to share with you a recipe that I learned to make while I worked in a restaurant in Ontario and is inspired by the south of France. It has goat's cheese, it's puff pastry, and these gorgeous in-season tomatoes. And this is perfect for the late summer. Have it right out of the oven with a glass of wine, and life is beautiful. So for our base, what we're going to be using is some fresh goat's cheese, also known as chèvre. I'm using half of a block, so about 1.5 ounces. And to that, I'm going to add 1 whole egg and 1 egg yolk. And I'm just going to break it up just a little bit here, so it'll be a little easier to combine once we get it into the goat's cheese. So for me today, I love thyme, so I'm going to use that. You can use herbe de Provence altogether if you want. And I like to just leave it a little bit rough because I like the texture. So leave the leaves whole, but if you want to chop it up, you can. Don't be worried about that. And of course, you need to have some garlic. So I've got 1 clove to 2 cloves. Again, it's up to you what you like. I've got 2 because I want lots of big flavor. So that's our mixture, and we're going to add in some really good sea salt. This is a recipe where all of your ingredients needs to be the best because we're highlighting things that are in season, and it makes all the difference. So I'm going to use some really nice sea salt. This is made here on PEI, so I'm going to use that today. And then I'm also going to add in some freshly cracked black pepper. Crack this yourself. Don't use the pre-ground stuff. There's a lot more flavor in black pepper when you crack it. That's why when you go to a steakhouse and they put pepper on your steak, it tastes so much better. Okay? So then we're going to mix up our goat's cheese mixture. And this is really, the eggs are really important here because it helps almost make like a custard or a little bit of a souffle base. So it's going to puff up a little bit, and it's going to be easier to spread on our puff pastry base. And so what you're going to have is basically what looks like a savory cheesecake base. And you want to make sure you don't have any big lumps. And once you have that, we're going to work on our puff pastry base, and we'll add our tomatoes and get it into the oven. So I'm using for our base of our tart puff pastry. You want to make sure you get all butter puff pastry. You don't want to use the cheap stuff here. Again, you want the sweetness of the butter to play with the tangy tartness of the goat's cheese and to really enhance that sweetness of the tomatoes. So I have 1 sheet here. I'm just going to stretch it out a little bit more, and you want to make sure it's on some parchment because if you don't, it's going to stick and your whole tart will be a bit of a mess. We're going to make almost like a picture frame. And this is a really easy technique. So we're making a whole tart here. In the restaurant, we would have made circles and cut them out, but this is a lot easier and you can serve it family style. So I have just an egg here that I've beaten, my pastry brush, and then I'm just going to basically paint the edges so the dough can stick, all right? Just like that. And then I'm just gonna take the long edge, fold it. And then you're gonna take a little bit more of that egg, brush it over the edges. This also just helps to make sure everything stays where it's supposed to. Puff pastry puffs. So it's okay for the edges to puff up. We want it to look like a picture frame, but we want to keep the center flat. So I'm going to use my fork, and I'm just going to gently dock the pastry. You don't need to stab it to go right through the dough, but you want to perforate just the top, just like that. And this will inhibit the dough from puffing up too much, okay? So tomatoes come in all these gorgeous colors, and originally it's believed that tomatoes were always yellow. So when the explorers from Europe came to the New World and brought them back, that's why they called them pomodoro. So they're golden apples. So these yellow tomatoes are known to have a little less acidity, a little bit more sweetness, but again, they're all delicious, and I love to just sort of prep ahead, slice all the tomatoes in the design I'd like, instead of cutting them as I go, because I end up making not as pretty a presentation. So do yourself a favor, slice your tomatoes, put it on a plate, pop it in the fridge, and you've got it ready to go So once you have those sliced, we're gonna spread our goat's cheese base onto our puff pastry, top with tomatoes, and get our garnish on. You wanna kind of dollop the filling kind of across all of the surface, so it'll be a little bit easier to spread. Puff pastry can be a little bit delicate, so you gotta work with that. So I like to just kind of put the filling, just dot it along, just like that. And it's ultimately gonna make it a little bit easier for you to spread out. And if you are really nervous about it, just put this pastry in the freezer while you're slicing your tomatoes and then take it out. It'll be a lot easier to spread. So gently spread. This is all about a little finesse, so take your time here. I'm not known to be very patient when I'm cooking things. When it comes to stuff like this, I do my best to be patient. So get your Zen deep breaths and you'll be fine. So we've got our edible picture frame ready. So now all we need to do is get our picture onto the frame. So we're gonna use our gorgeous tomatoes, and I have a variety of sizes, as I said, and I've laid them all out on my plate ahead of time, so it makes the assembly so much easier, and it's quite satisfying actually. And you wanna sort of tile them. It's gonna look a lot more attractive so you don't have really big gaps. Just like so. So once you have your tomatoes in place, it looks lovely and pretty like that, we're going to go in with just a little bit of cracked black pepper again. So we season up our tomatoes, and some more of that really nice sea salt. As I said, this is really important to use the good stuff here because we're really highlighting tomatoes in the season. It's special, so celebrate them. And I like to put just a little bit of sugar because I like the way it finishes. You don't have to do this, but I like to just sprinkle a little bit. It's one of those things my chef taught me to do when I was a wee apprentice, so it's really hard to break those kinds of habits. You might find out, you know. So a little bit of sugar, just a touch. And again, I'm just gonna sprinkle with just a little bit more of that fresh thyme. Here would be nice if you wanted to put, again, some fresh rosemary if you wanted, or even some lavender blossoms to really enhance that flavor of the south of France, okay? And then we're gonna put in a little drizzle of olive oil, the extra virgin olive oil. And if you have some of that good stuff at home as well, this is a good place to use it. And then we're gonna put this in a 415-degree oven for about 20 minutes, or until the puff pastry is really nice and golden brown and the bottom is also golden brown and cooked through. Can't wait. Let's get in the oven. All right, this is our tomato tart. We've got some nice caramelization happening on our tomatoes. The crust is nice and golden. It's cooked all the way through. So we're gonna take it to the plate. And I think part of the magic of this dish is serving it whole like this. It looks really pretty. So it's also nice to garnish. Again, you can use anything you want really. You could use some microgreens, you could use some more fresh thyme if you'd like. I'm just gonna use a little bit of flat leaf parsley because that's what I have and I love it. And it's a nice bright pop of green color. And here at the school, at the culinary school, we have a nice garden, so I found some edible flowers. So I'm gonna sprinkle just a few flower petals just because I have them. You certainly don't have to do that. And this is called calendula, and this is an edible flower and very easy to grow right from seed. So think about this next spring and plant some of these and you can make your salads look really, really pretty. And you just kind of let it rain. And that's it. So, this is a flavor of the south of France. If you want to pair this with wine, I suggest something like a Sancerre. But if you want to go for some beer, a lambic, a really bright pilsner would be great. And enjoy the little last bit of our late summer sunshine. Juicy tomatoes, beautiful goat's cheese. Happy eating, guys.